aquatic ecologist and water resources educator with Michigan State University Extension. His job responsibilities include providing expertise in aquatic ecology to residents and organizations within Michigan and delivering educational programs, such as this one, that promote understanding about water resources. Among many initiatives, Erick is a core member of the Michigan Clean Water Corps, a network of volunteer water quality monitoring programs in Michigan. So please help me in welcoming Erick.
Just make sure my microphone is in a good spot. It's not too loud, or it's good. Okay. So let's see. So I'm following Nancy, and I always like to link here. So I follow my passion. And my passion is lakes, prairies, and aquatic plants. So kind of an interesting combo of things of terrestrial and aquatic environments. Aquatic plants, as you see, I'm not saying weeds in the water, but aquatic plants. I love talking about them, so I had to insert it somehow into this presentation, and you're getting into it in the intro slide. Lakes and prairies, I did my master's degree in the prairies of Canada, looking at prairie pothole regions and looking at those prairie potholes. How many people know what prairie potholes are? Nope. No. There are countless little depressions caused by the glacial activities of the past 10,000 years or more or longer that left these pockets out into the Great Plains regions of the temperate regions of the world, including North America. And these prairie potholes are little shallow lakes. And so just know that even in Michigan, there are more shallow lakes than deep lakes. This is important. You don't necessarily think of this. A shallow lake may be entirely covered by aquatic plants. So the center of the lake, where we usually think that's the deepest part, may only be 10 feet deep. And at 10 feet deep, aquatic plants can still grow because there's enough light for them. So that's what I studied, and a whole bunch of other things. And today I'm going to be talking about, I guess I'll introduce it a little different. This is an interesting conference. It's a little different. And what's nice is that we're getting perspectives from individuals, from organizations, and we're blending on what we can do together. And that's what my presentation is the power of collaboration. And I'm going to be talking about the management and the collaborating to manage our water resources, and how we just learned a lot about what individuals can do in that previous presentation. Now I'm going to talk about how individuals can link up with others and create some pretty promising and cool things. And hopefully I'll give a little bit of insight on how to do this further, create more, or to join in, because one of my goals is to also show some of the tools and resources out there already that can be utilized. So just so I know, so I can tailor my talk, how many people live on a lake? Excellent. How many people live on a creek or a river or a stream? How many people have a wetland on their property or near their property? Okay, so I can see why you've chosen this talk. All right. So Michigan has a tremendous amount of water resources. We get identity from it. We utilize it. We feel good about it. We have a great sense of place from our water resources. We have the beauty. We have loons. How wonderful. We have these places like Torch Lake that look like the Caribbean. And we utilize them in many different ways. And interesting enough, we moved there. We love living on water. As you can see in the upper left, we love living on them. We change them dramatically when we do. This looks quite a bit different from this shoreline, for example. So we moved there, we changed some of the landscapes, and there's some consequences to that. But there doesn't have to be, but there often is. So for example, does anyone know what this is? Myriophyllum, I heard a lot, that's excellent. Myriophyllum spicatum, Eurasian water milfoil. It's an invasive plant that's causing a lot of issues all over the place, including here in Michigan. This picture down here, this is blue-green algae blooms. You hear it in the news as HABs, or harmful algal blooms. These are algae that can produce or may produce toxins that can kill your pets and give us upset stomachs and other problems caused by excess nutrients and a whole bunch of other things. Then over here, this is flooding. We have a lot of impervious surface. This is This is MSU, Michigan State University's campus, where the Red Cedar River flooded and flooded huge areas. Well, first of all, we've developed in the floodplain, and then also we have a lot of impervious surface. Water can no longer just filter into the ground slowly and make its way into the groundwater into other surface waters. Instead, we get flash events. Now, what's this brown water? This brown water has sediments and has other things that are causing major issues. These issues and these stressors that we put on our water bodies aren't going away anytime soon. This is a study that came out in 2012 where we look at the development intensity on our lakes in Michigan. So this is for Michigan, and this is predicted percent of our lakes. So what I just want to show you, oh, and I guess I'll say this, the white bar is the southern 3/4 of the state, and then the north is considered all of the UP and part of the upper part of the lower peninsula. So what we can see here, and since we're in the southern part of the state, I'm going to concentrate on that, is that there is a very small percent of our lakes that have no homes. And then if I just skip the middle part and we go to this greater than 10 homes per kilometer, that's seen as high density of development where there's high impact, or where there is impact. And we can see that almost 70% of our lakes in the southern part of our state are in the highly developed category. So a lot of those harmful algal blooms, the flooding, the invasive species, the whole bunch of things aren't going away because we put pressures by our existence on these water bodies. And I also want to point out just that, so this requires a certain level of management. We have to put goals out for our lakes that are like this and then try to manage towards those. But then we also manage towards these. If we can identify on the landscape where these lakes are, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could do management actions to them? One of them could be just protection and then public access to that protected lake. So it becomes this rare, unique feature on the landscape where we can all enjoy. So the EPA leads something called the National Lake Assessment, and the DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality here in Michigan, joins forces to help them for the Michigan's lakes. And what I just, kind of small text, but I highlighted over here, the #1 threat to Michigan inland lakes is the loss of lakeshore habitat. So this is where that original picture I kind of showed, where we've cut down all the trees, we removed all the shrubs, we probably removed those aquatic plants or weeds in the water, and we put a seawall in place. So we removed a lot of habitat. Well, those have consequences to various levels of a lake ecosystem. The #2 threat is mercury contamination, which is interesting. I won't get into that too much unless you have a question about it. And then the other one is high nutrients. And just to talk about what they found in this study is that over 40% of the lakes were the most disturbed when looking at lakeshore habitat degradation, the threat to them. That's a lot of our lakes. What about our rivers? So this is just one topic in rivers. This could be a lot, but this is great. Septic tanks aren't keeping poo out of our rivers and lakes. That was the actual title of an article, which is great. And whenever you can say poo in public, it's wonderful. So poo. What we have here is these are watersheds and sub-watersheds within Michigan, and this is a study out of Michigan State University in 2015 that was published. What this is showing is E. coli. Does everyone know E. coli? So E. coli is a group of bacteria that have multiple strains and multiple sources. So that's a very simplistic overview, as we have a microbial person back here. It can come from animals, like birds, livestock, but it could come from wild birds. It could come from geese. And it can come from us, for example. But E. coli isn't the best measure out there to know because it's too broad. When you test for it, we actually don't know exactly where it came from. So that hurts our management practices. What do we do? But then this is looking at a new genetic tool at a specific coming from humans, and lo and behold, we have some. The red means there's a lot of human bacteria in these watersheds, in these streams, in these rivers and lakes. So that's a little disturbing, right? A lot of and without going into much more detail, is that septic systems, a lot of us are on it in Michigan. If you're out in the country, you're on a septic system. If you're on the fringe of towns, you may be on septic systems. And so there's a lot out there. That's kind of disturbing, right? We all recreate in these water bodies. And then wetland loss. My final thing I wanted to mention. And so this is Michigan all here, and the county's broken up, and it shows the percentage of wetland loss in Michigan by county. As you can see, our southeast, let's say Wayne County, is estimated to have lost 81 to 100% of their wetlands. Here in Berry County, so I looked that up, right, we're in Berry County here. Correct. So this is Berry County. This is zoomed in of Berry. And the red shows the lost wetlands from the 1800s to today, or to the 1980s. And in all, it's around 20% loss, 21% loss in Berry County. Does anyone know this? That's a big chunk of land. Not sure, I didn't investigate. I was just going to see if you guys knew what it was. So it may have been along a river that was, seen as valuable either to agriculture because the soils were wonderful, or for development where you could, get maybe better property alongside the river. Or there's other reasons as well. So, okay, wow, man, Eric, thanks for making me depressed. And it's not to say that's not the purpose of this, is that there's issues ranging far and wide in our water bodies, and that now we can take action. There's stuff that we can do, but how do we take action? This is really difficult. There's some cases where we learned with Nancy is that it took major actions by that small group of people. But if you listen to different parts of that, she was mentioning often contacting the DNR, working with the DNR. So even though she sued the DNR for one thing, she was still working with DNR. She was working with DEQ. FERC is a federal group that was dealing with the lake, and I forgot all the Alco. Sorry, I can't remember exactly, but she was working with them at some level, getting information, talking with them, learning a little bit more. So what do we do? What are we supposed to do? Well, there's challenges. And I'm going to talk about that for the next couple slides, is that, well, what can we do in all the barriers that we come up against? On a statewide level, we have a tremendous amount of water. First of all, we have the Great Lakes. So we're surrounded by the Great Lakes here in Michigan. But let's look inland. We have 11,000 lakes over 5 acres. So we have 11,000 water bodies over 5 acres in Michigan. We have approximately 51,000 miles of river. That's a lot to manage, take care of, all these sorts of things. So here's a figure from 2014, a paper from 2014. This is the number of sites that the DEQ in 2013 monitored in streams. So MDEQ biologists visit these stream sites every 5 years. And it's, we'll say just under 600 sites. That doesn't mean rivers or streams. It's like locations along the different streams. And for lakes, they hit in 2013 around 70. So you can see 11,000 lakes, they hit 70. This is the problem. It's not a critique of them. It's more, this is a big resource that we need, that it's a challenge to meet everyone's expectations and to manage them correctly. So what I'm going to talk about the majority of the day is integrated partnerships. We can look at 2 different models of how we can manage this broad statewide resource at a landscape level like a state, but then also at a individual lake or stream or wetland level as well. And so just quickly talking about the 2 models, there's this trickle-down model. And this is where experts publish and local practitioners use that knowledge. So let's say I'm a researcher at a university and I'm doing research in isolation, and I come out with something that maybe somebody will pick up. So that research comes from academia and then trickles on down. Or it could be that, let's say, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is saying this is how we're going to manage something, and that is then dictated down the line. Now there's different levels of this, but let's go to the other end in this participation model. This is where experts and locals work together. So now this is where academia comes in, is in the communities and learning about the needs that are out there. So harmful algal blooms has become a major issue to people. And people are coming up with questions because they're living on these water bodies that might have these issues. And so now, and they live on these lakes, so they're looking at these lakes. They're looking at these streams every day. And so they have some insight. Now, if there was a way that they could collaborate with experts who have the expertise to now understand what was going on, but they can work together to create a better product, to manage better, to make sure as much as possible the needs are being met. So I'm going to talk about this participation model a little bit, but I'm going to motivate it by looking at further challenges. So the challenges for agencies and researchers in the statewide level of management, and then also at the management at the local scale, is inconsistent funding. Our government agencies, federal and state, are dictated by what the legislature earmarks towards them, puts towards them, and that can change from different election cycles. Really, right? I don't think we need to consider that, and that can cause many issues. And one of the major issues that can cause is this limited personnel. Something I wanted to highlight is that there are 14 area DNR fisheries biologists in the state. Those are the ones who manage the fisheries. 14. So if I were just to break it, I'm going to be overly simplistic. If there's 11,000 lakes, and now and let's say they're all created equal, those 11,000 lakes, which is not necessarily the case, but there's 14 fisheries biologists who are managing. That's like 800 lakes each. So is that that's a tough thing to do. That's a hard place to be, and to manage those things, manage these resources correctly and timely. Other issues is that there's private locations. We can't necessarily get onto all these waterways. This is more for researchers. They may have questions out there that they want to ask and develop and study, but they can't get access to it. Also, they might have questions. Researchers might have questions that require long-term data sets. And the state agencies may not have it, the federal agencies may not have it, and so they can't answer certain questions where they need long-term data. And then I'm just going to go on to this one. The lack of public support for research and management. This is where we're saying, why are you doing that? The public might just be like, I don't get it. Like, we actually have this problem. We're not having that problem. Why are you putting all of your management efforts into that? And so this lack of public support, and then that can feed back to saying, well, let's not fund them more. Suddenly it's, I think it's, I've been in many communities where it's like, oh, the DNR did this. And that's unfortunate, and again, I'm not putting blame on anything, it's more working together though. This is one of the issues that state agencies and other agencies and academia run into. But now let's talk about the individual. Let's say the individual wants to take action, or local organizations. This could be Pierce Cedar Creek. It could be a local watershed organization. The problem there is that many of these organizations, like lake associations, have very limited technical expertise. They may not even have, so a lake association especially, may not have anyone who's a biologist or a limnologist on their staff, and yet they're dictating what's happening on their water body. Because they may have funds from the lake association, or there's a lake board. But so that can have problems. And this goes to, what do we even collect in the field? How do we analyze it? Who do we analyze? Who does the analysis? Okay, we have data. What do we do with that data? What does it mean? Right, this is the problem at the individual scale. Also, now let's say, okay, you have some data. What do we do with it? Okay, well, I think we need to reduce nutrients going into our lake or our stream. Yep, that's good, so everything's leading towards it, but now what? What are our options? And you might not have the understanding of all the options out there, so you become limited. And then implementation. Okay, so now you want to put in a shoreline, because you've deemed that you should be putting in a natural shoreline. Well, how do you get that started? How much does it cost? Who do I contact? It goes back to, I need now technical expertise. And so now you can see at the individual or local organization, there's these challenges that maybe can be met by agencies or academia. So that leads us to this participation model where experts and locals work together, because they can actually bridge a lot of those problems. And the thing that I'm going to talk about today, as you saw from my title, is going to be citizen science. So I'll just read a wonderful from Wikipedia. I thought it was just one of the nicest ones I saw. So what is citizen science? Citizen science is the collection and analysis of data related to the natural world by members of the general public, typically as part of a collaborative project with professional scientists. Right? It's the combination of things. I think sometimes we miss that. Sometimes we say citizen science, it's having the power of the individual going out there and doing everything, which is actually, they're doing a lot and they're learning a lot and they're contributing a lot, but it's in collaboration, it's in conjunction with other. And so the benefits, let's look at that, is that the benefits to local organizations is now they're collecting data that helps find answers. I was already talking to a couple individuals where you could go out there and collect water clarity from a lake fairly easily. I think all of you could. Then you go to your lake association and you say, we need to do something about this. Our water clarity is super low. Let's say that's the case. They may look, the president or people may say, who are you? How did you collect it? And then they may dismiss this data that was collected. Even if it was collected correctly, they may dismiss it. So now, actually, what you're doing with citizen science programs is you're following a protocol that follows scientific rigor, and you are trained on it, and you have experts that are ready to answer your phone or answer their phone if you have a question, or look at pictures. What's this? And so it adds a scientific backing to the data that's being collected. And then that'll help find the answers, because now people can say, well, what's that? Who are you? Oh, I'm following this protocol. Here's information for you. It connects people. This is where they may be neighbors, they may have never talked to each other, but now they're working together because they had one common goal of invasive plants in lakes. And they don't want it in their lake, so here, lo and behold, they find each other, they create a relationship, and maybe they get a group together on a lake, and now your sunset cruises are not just spent enjoying the setting sun, but it's also looking at the aquatic plants, which I think sounds great. Enhances this sense of place. Almost everyone, I think, lives on some sort of water body. You already have a sense of place by living on that water body. If it's a vernal pool, which is a fleeting wetland, to a lake, to a flowing body of water like a river, we feel a sense of place there. We identify with that. But now imagine if you look out there and you can realize what you're seeing and why is it looking this way. Oh, why in April was my lake completely cloudy? Now in May it's completely clear. Completely clear. Why is that? You might learn from these citizen science programs why that is, and you get a deeper sense of place because of that. And then all this together spurring conservation action. If you start collecting data through time and it's scientifically valid, this can lead to now enough information to create action. And I'll be talking about some success stories in some of our citizen science programs later. So I need to talk just quickly. Anybody in state agencies here? All right. There's benefits to them. So I went through the challenges that are had by our agencies and academia when it comes to managing at a statewide scale with all these different resources. And so the advantages, the benefits to them, is that it expands their collection capacity. Because usually they are part of those professional scientists that are part of the citizen science program where they can work together to make sure their data is compatible. So now they're collecting data, you're collecting data, and so are 400 other people across the state. The power of that is amazing. It strengthens understanding of community needs. So this is now bridging that disconnect that sometimes happens. So they work closely together while developing these citizen science programs, and they learn what the people are feeling out there. For example, the big one that's been happening is aquatic invasive species. The pressure is on out there, and that's what the people are feeling. And now working with the DNR and other agencies, you're moving forward with that. And then I think all of that together is improving the public opinion of agencies. It's not the DEQ. It's, hey, it's my DEQ area biologist. I'm going to go talk to that person. Right? We get a better connection with them. And that's great, because then maybe that leads to more funding. Maybe. So, that's kind of my background of all of this. Now I'm going to talk about that core team that I'm a part of called the Michigan Clean Water Corps. Under the Michigan Clean Water Corps, we have different branches that look at different things. We have one that looks at streams and one that looks at lakes. And I'm going to talk about each of those. I'm going to talk about this because some form of this the lake portion called the Cooperative Lakes Monitoring Program, that's been going on since 1974 in some shape or form. And then MICOR came along from Jennifer Granholm's administration, asking the DEQ to work and kind of go through what we just talked about, the benefits of citizen science. Create this, lead this effort, and then move forward. And now we have it today where we're collecting on lakes all around the state and in streams as well. So MICOR is a statewide volunteer water quality monitoring network. The goals were to establish and expand a volunteer monitoring network of lakes and streams, have part of it be public education. That's key, right? If I just say, collect this, So public education is a big part of it. Why am I collecting Secchi disc, which is a measure of water clarity? Why am I doing this? What does it matter? What does it tell me? So education is key. Collection and exchange of reliable and meaningful water quality data. That's what I've now talked about multiple times. It's that agencies can use this data, individuals and local organizations can use this data. This data has an easier exchange because what we did was establish an internet-based program and database. This is all online and the database is public. That's wonderful. So I talked to somebody who lived on Pine Lake. A person here? Can't remember. Pine Lake. I can go onto our website, click on Pine Lake. So if I had a question, if someone came to me and said, Eric, my lake is green, I need your help. I would look, the first thing I would go to is the MICOR website, click on it and see if there's been any MICOR data collected on it for the last 40 plus years. Which is super powerful, because now it's not just perception of an individual. I have the data to back it up. To reinforce what I was talking about, with collaboration, the power of collaboration. We have the DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality, leading this effort, and they're closely working with. So it's not that DEQ is doing it all. It actually is a nice collaboration and partnership with the Huron River Watershed Council, Michigan State University, Michigan Lake Stewardship Associations, previously Michigan Lake and Stream Associations, and the Great Lakes Commission. Those are the leadership groups that are all working together to make this function with the volunteers. And the feedback is open between all of this. So we want to the volunteers are part of how we manage the system, because we need to, that's a two-way street in communication. So the parameters that we collect in the Cooperative Lakes Monitoring Program is transparency. So that's Secchi disc reading. How clear is the water? Total phosphorus. We care about total phosphorus out of a nutrient because it's typically the most limiting nutrient in the water body, meaning if you put it into a water body, the plant life, algae or higher plants, will grow more. And you can get an algal bloom. And these can cause a cascading effects that even affect the dissolved oxygen in the water. Chlorophyll A is a proxy for algae. So algae photosynthesize, and they use the compound they use a chlorophyll compound. They use many, but chlorophyll A is kind of the one that we use, so we can get an idea of how much algae is in your water body. Dissolved oxygen, it's just important because that's an important feature for the chemistry as well as the habitat of a lake. Temperature, that's the same thing. Here are aquatic plants. You can sample native aquatic plants. You can do an early detection survey called the Exotic Aquatic Plant Watch, which is about detecting a plant before it becomes an issue. So detecting an invasive plant before it becomes an issue. And then doing shoreline surveys so you can understand where the lake shoreline may be able to be improved to help the quality of the lake. The stream monitoring, for many of you who live on streams. The big part here is macroinvertebrate surveys. So why macroinvertebrate surveys on streams? We know through lots of research through time that macroinvertebrates, what species are there and how many, can tell us the water quality. It can tell us if your stream is stressed, have poor water quality, all these sorts of things.
And so instead of you don't even necessarily need to initially take many other parameters. If you only have chironomids in your stream, which are little bloodworms, they're like little guys that are bright red. If I just find those and nothing else, your stream is impaired. Then you can move forward and do more sampling. But at least that first key is just doing macroinvertebrate surveys. Habitat surveys, so we're just saying, well, what is there? Is it sandy? Is it rocky? Is there down woody trees in there? Road stream crossings. This is the power of this program is they've done surveys around different watersheds and streams and learned to see if a culvert under a road is perched, so the stream is down here, but the culvert's up here. And so what it does is now any organism, specifically fish, cannot navigate that. And so now you can get populations get isolated from one another, some can become extirpated and all these sorts of things. And so you identify these, and I'll skip to, I didn't specifically have a slide on this, but wow, it's amazing. Some of them, like the White River Watershed Partnership, they did road stream crossings with the MyCore stream monitoring, and then they got, I'll just say a lot of money from the Forest Service, and they corrected a ton of them, like many road stream crossings. It was amazing. And they continued to collect this data so they knew before and after effects of that reconnection. It's amazing, super powerful. And by the way, this is too hard to read probably from back there because I couldn't find a higher resolution. So this is our volunteer stream monitoring program. Michigan Streams, ours to protect. I like to put that because sometimes people may say it's the DEQ's responsibility, but it's our responsibility. It's the DEQ's and ours. And I love that slogan, ours to protect. So some value that MyCore has added to the state. So this is that figure that I showed earlier where it was just the 2013 MDEQ monitoring of the stream sites and number of lakes. So when we look at 2013 data and we look at what did MyCore contribute to that, is that MyCore has now brought up the number of streams monitored, sites monitored to over 1,000. And if you can recall, which I'll just remind you because it was a detail that was passing, the DEQ is monitoring these group of stream sites once every 5 years. MyCore volunteers are required to do it twice annually. So you're getting great resolution of data there. And then for lakes, so that was around 70 that the DEQ was monitoring, and now in 2013, we were close to 300 lakes being sampled just by MyCore, so then plus the DEQ, you get more. And the DNR is also sampling lakes, so altogether, we're getting a good chunk. In 2018, for the first time ever, I think, we had over 300 lakes across the state sampling in the Cooperative Lakes Monitoring Program. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of people, because 300 lakes, I wish I knew the number of volunteers, because there's many volunteers per lake. There's many volunteers per stream that are doing this. So that's a lot of people engaged and learning about their water body and contributing. So here's a success story that I wanted to share. This is new from 2018. So this is on the early detection of invasive plants. A new plant out there is called starry stonewort, Nyctalopsis obtusa is the scientific name. It's fun to say, it's right there. Anyways, it's a new plant that's causing a lot of alarm. It's now, unfortunately, spread all around the southern part of the state and is moving northward. Many of the other states in the Great Lakes regions are being concerned about it. We probably have the most occurrences in the Great Lakes region compared to New York. And once it's there, we don't necessarily have the best management practices developed fully to know how to get rid of it or manage it even. And so that's a problem. But if you can find it, if it's a small patch, and you find it in a small patch, now there's some actions you can take. And what was nice is the Exotic Aquatic Plant Watch, which is part of the Cooperative Lakes Monitoring Program. Sorry for all the names. We found just in Oakland County, over 10 lakes. We're still double checking things. So 10 plus lakes discovered starry stonewort in Oakland County for the first time using the Exotic Aquatic Plant Watch. So if this survey wasn't done by these volunteers, citizen scientist volunteers, they may not have known about the starry stonewort, and then in 5 years they may be known because the starry stonewort was filling the entire volume of their lake potentially. This is a figure from Fremont Lake in Nuevo County that I've had a chance to work on myself. And what I wanted to show with this is a figure of water clarity through time. So that's Secchi. Secchi disk is water transparency, so how clear the water is. On this lake, there's a group of people sampling it from the beginning, 1974. There was an initial volunteer on this lake who's collecting water clarity. And this is in feet. So water clarity was around 3 feet in the 70s and early 80s. The lake was in poor condition. It was hypereutrophic is what it's called. Lots of algal blooms, lots of problems. And then that person, the survey kind of slowed down, but then survey started up again, because when a volunteer leaves, it may not be replaced. So it may take time or whatever. And so you have another gap here, and then we have a cluster of it happening there as well. So I got to do a study on this lake. I would not have been able to come up with any sort of conclusions the way I was able to without this 40-year data record. Now, there's gaps, but look what's happened. Something happened there. Water clarity went from 3 feet to, I'll call that 14 feet on average. That's a huge difference if you live on a water body, right? That would make a big difference to how you view that lake. But what's interesting is you have that initial drop. But then if I put a line just through here, it didn't drop very much. Actually, it hasn't at all. It's kind of been the same. If not, gotten a tiny bit worse. So this information has now put forward a science-backed data to make management decisions, informed management decisions. And they're taking it. They're working on the stream inlets, they're working on shorelines, they're working on no-wake zones in habitat-sensitive areas. They're now starting to look at the dissolved oxygen levels in the lower parts of the lake and how can they start to mitigate its impacts. And all these sorts of things, purely because we have data that's from the last 40 years. How about research? I needed to show something about research as well because they benefit as well. This is a project that I'm on that's ongoing right now, is that there's the research goal that's happening out of Montana State, but you're working here because we have this wonderful citizen science network, is looking at hybrid water milfoil. So that's Eurasian milfoil that's reproduced with native milfoils to create this hybrid, which creates a whole host of other issues. So what's hard is this person needs to collect the data. Well, how do they collect data from across the state? Because they needed a landscape level of this. Well, let's engage the citizen scientists who are out there already collecting this data, and let's give them a little bit more. Wow, we mentioned it, everyone said yes. Everyone we asked to collect wanted to collect this data when we asked them to. And so they were engaged, and these are the lakes, as of just last year, that were collecting Eurasian hybrid milfoil and Eurasian milfoil from their lakes, which is spectacular. So I'm getting closer now, I'm just giving you some resources here. So that's my core program. It's been shown to be effective. There have been many research projects on them. We know that fisheries biologists use it commonly to help them make decisions on what kind of water body and what kind of fishery should be there. So it's wonderful. Now moving to wetlands, and this is the one I chose, called the Vernal Pool Patrol Partnership, or the Vernal Pools Partnership. Vernal pools are pools that are fleeting. They are there usually in the springtime and then they're gone, but they're super important for a host of different critters, including some cool amphibians, frogs, different invertebrates. It's spectacular. This is supposed to be ineligible, but you can't read it. These are the partners that are all together working on this project. From the University of Michigan to the City of Ann Arbor to the Huron River Watershed Partnership to the DNR and even the federal level, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So the power of a collaboration is making this happen, and now we're collecting vernal pool information across the state because we don't know where the vernal pools are. If we don't know where they are, we can't manage them at an individual level or at a statewide level. And so that's where the benefit of this partnership is coming about, among many other benefits. I mentioned shorelines was the biggest threat to the degradation of our lakes, or the degradation of shorelines is a great threat to our lakes here in Michigan. And here's a program called the Michigan Shoreline Stewards Program. And to be quick and simplistic, it's an online tool where you do the survey. we ask you questions, and what comes out at the end is, how is your shoreline? I'll say, is it good or is it bad? I'm being overly simplistic, but this is what it'll come out. But we give recommendations to no matter where you are. If you have a good shoreline, we teach you about protection actions. If you have a shoreline that's highly degraded, we tell you ways to make it better and mitigate those issues. It's a great program, and it's backed by the Michigan Natural Shoreline Partnership. Not backed, it's part of it. And the Michigan Natural Shoreline Partnership has a host of things that we do. I'm the vice chair of the Michigan Natural Shoreline Partnership, so it's a really cool project. But education is still part of it, right? So there's all these programs that is doing, but there's that level of information that we do need. And so a lot of the citizen science programs have an educational component, but these are also programs that I wanted to highlight from MSU Extension's water team, where we're trying to address the different levels of things. So Introduction to Lakes is an online class that's happening right now. Lake and Stream Leaders Institute is a program where we teach you the science and how to be a leader in your local community. We have all these different shoreline stuff for homeowners, for private contractors, and then a host of other things. We have Water School, which is to help newly elected officials, but not just newly elected officials, any local officials and local leaders to learn about water quality, water quantity, water economics, sense of place caused by water, water policy. We're just informing them about the power, or what's out there with water. PFAS, does anyone know about PFAS? I'm on the PFAS action team for MSU Extension. That's causing, so if you have any questions about that later on, I'd be happy to answer some things at my booth out by the food. We're doing stuff on that, and we're trying to figure out what to do. As you know, the problem is emerging, but it's here. And septic system education. These are just some of them. And these are great opportunities that you can do at your leisure or when we're giving them across the state. And these can help inform as you move on to the citizen science programs that are out there. And they're great. We're seeing it everywhere. Funding is always a thing, though. These collaborations do require funding. And if anyone is anyone in the Cooperative Lakes Monitoring Program on the lake? Excellent. It lost all funding with the Clean Michigan Initiative, where that money is gone as of last year, but enough local support across the state put forth effort to fund it for another year, and actions are still being taken to see if there's more sustainable funding for programs like that. And that goes for all citizen science programs across the board. So thank you. That was a blitz of citizen science and water resources.
We have time for probably one question.
Yes.
How do we get involved with this if we want to participate in this as a private citizen to get your water tested or whatever?
So how do we get involved with this? That was the base of the question. That's tough. As in, like, the answer is a lot of responsibility goes on to the individual. So, and then it goes to people like me as well, and that we hopefully intersect. So how do you get involved is now take this information that I've given you, so people in this room, look it up online. We're signing up for the Cooperative Lakes Monitoring Program right now. And it goes on for the next couple months. So you have time, which is nice. As for the educational programs, you could sign up for the Michigan State University Extension newsletter when it comes to lakes, streams, and wetlands. And what you'll get there is this a newsletter ever so often that will say, hey, Introductions to Lakes is, registration is open, take a peek at it. We also have a bunch of articles that always go out, press releases. You could get involved with different organizations. So the Michigan Lake Stewardship Association is a overarching group over lake associations. If you get involved with a local watershed organization, they will probably know about, they might be using the MyCore data, and they would love for you to be a volunteer to help. So, does that answer, I guess?
So would we contact Michigan Core to get involved, to enroll in the program then?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, let's thank Eric.